Thanks for choosing to listen to this Late Night Linux Family podcast. We're only able to do this because of the people who support us. None of our shows are paywalled, but our Patreon supporters can get most episodes early and never hear any ads. Learn more at latenightlinux.com/support or support us by telling a friend or colleague about everything we do.
Hybrid Cloud Show, Episode 61. I'm Aaron.
I'm Gary.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Shane.
Welcome to the show about public cloud, private cloud, and everything in between. Our views here are ours and not those of our employers. We recently did an episode of Hot Questions or Hot Takes, and we all had a bit of fun. Hope you did too. We decided we'd have another go. So, here's a few more questions. If you rebuilt everything again from scratch today, in your home lab or in your work infrastructure, whichever you think's most interesting, what technology would you use that you haven't used in anger before?
I am using it in anger, but I probably would have used it a lot sooner, which is Kubernetes. I came heavily in on AWS. Even when we started this podcast, I was very like, what the hell is this Kubernetes crap? AWS does everything. But once I kind of got out of the AWS world, I realized how brain-shaped I was by Amazon. And the way I shaped problems I saw, solving those problems was through that very AWS-specific lens. And so Kubernetes had kind of pulled me towards thinking a bit more generically, like workload, scheduling, declarative state, controllers, like the kind of that mental model sort of travels. So I know Kubernetes is kind of pretty heavy, but I think the cognitive payoff is that I'm not thinking in a way that's vendor locked. So if I were starting afresh, I'd skip maybe so many years of AWS-shaped thinking.
Man, you think that you were brainwashed into the AWS way of thinking. Let me tell you, the detoxification process is real. I think for me, I'd probably look at something like KubeVirt. I want to use Kubernetes to manage all of the containers and stuff, but I also want a consistent management plane across all of my workloads. So I think for me, the ability to orchestrate VMs in a Kubernetes-like way might be really useful. I also fully appreciate that it's probably quite a niche thing, and there isn't much documentation or support out there. But I don't know, I just like the idea of having one control plane to rule them all, which I think is how I recently ended up quite heavily on the Proxmox side of things, because all of the products work in a similar way. The backup server works very similarly to the hypervisor. Everything is fairly simple to get my way through, and I've sort of learned the way they do stuff now, and I've got many hosts, and it works fine. I think if I were to do it again, something like KubeVirt, where I could deploy the containers in native Kubernetes and the VMs in a similar fashion, might be interesting.
Interesting. I've always thought of VMs as being kind of quite different to containers in a Kubernetes cluster, and I've kind of wondered why it was that people would want to think of those things conceptually in the same way. What's the advantage of having them in your Kubernetes control plane as opposed to just having a separate control plane that you can do all the things you need to do with launching or killing or whatever those VMs?
Well, I think for me, it's that probably 95% of the stuff I run is easily containerized. So therefore would lend itself really nicely to Kubernetes. And I just want to learn one way of deploying that stuff. So if I could then have a virtual machine image that I go and deploy as part of a Helm chart I've written or something like that, versus a container, and it's just a very easy swap in, swap out orchestration tool for all of my workloads, regardless of if they're a container or a VM, there's something quite appealing about that.
So many technologies. I don't know about in anger. Gary, have you heard of Harvester by SUSE?
No, because it's made by SUSE.
Yeah, well, I started off by using Rancher to get Kubernetes spun up, and I didn't really understand what I was doing when I added the Rancher pod to a VM, and then it would set up K3S and all that stuff for me. And then what Harvester is basically Kubernetes for Kubernetes, which means it will run Kubernetes on top. It uses Longhorn for its storage. And then when you want to make a Kubernetes cluster, it will use KubeVirt to provision VMs that it will then spin up, Kubernetes on top of. So, yo, dog.
What's the Kubernetes for Harvester, though? I don't understand.
I don't know how far deep it goes, Shane.
The one that I've always come across at conferences and, when I've been looking into things and then never got around to actually trying, that I'd like to have a play with is Pulumi, just because I like Python and I haven't gone to the trouble of taking, Terraform stuff and Pulumiizing it. But I quite like the idea that I would be able to have native Python constructs mixed in with my infrastructure as code.
Yeah, when I've had software projects and integrated it with CDK, if you're very in this software engineering mindset and you're like, we don't even have an infrastructure team, as a startup, you can do really cool stuff where your code is basically driving out the constructs that are effectively then building your infrastructure. So the code, it's not like, oh, I'll write a message parser in my code and then I'll write the infrastructure for a queue somewhere. It's all just driven by the code, which is a really cool place to be.
What's a piece of career advice that you would give yourself 10 years ago?
Get a farm.
You want to elaborate on that?
No. Probably realistically, the answer would be something like maybe talking and writing more in public. Not for an audience of any sort. It's more like to think slightly bigger picture than your day-to-day and your current job and your current role. Being forced to think about your industry and think about like the bigger picture in which you operate like is quite a nice perspective to gain. And I think I'd rather have done that sooner.
So not like writing poetry, more like thought leadership.
Yeah, I guess. That feels very grand for just getting your head around the industry a little more. But yeah.
I think not letting perfect be the enemy of good enough is probably something I'd have told myself. There is a solution to every problem. And I think early in my career, I wanted to find the solution to the next problem and the next one and the next one and just make everything perfect. But I think the reality was I wasn't in a life or death situation. I was serving images for supermarket websites. And actually, that isn't really that important. If someone goes to a supermarket website and they can't see the ketchup bottle, they all know what the ketchup bottle looks like. It doesn't really matter. And getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning because the server ran out of disk space and trying to find a permanent solution at 3 o'clock in the morning to resolving this server that ran out of disk space once a month, every month, probably wasn't a good use of my on-call pay that I got. But actually just keeping the lights on and then worrying about that stuff later might have been. So I guess it's similar to you, Shane. It's having that bigger context of what it is you're actually doing and why you're doing it. Because not everything is a problem that needs to be perfectly solved. And I wish I had realized that earlier on so I could have learnt more important and better skills than resolving the thing that was just in front of me.
Does invest in GPU vendor shares count as career advice?
Shut up. Oh my gosh. We all should have done that.
Mm.
I think I would have to say prioritize your work-life balance. No one's paying you extra for going the extra mile. And 10 years ago, I think I had just finished solving a logistical problem for a company and saved them millions of dollars. And I was thinking, wow, like I had such a great impact. But none of that came back to me. And like, yeah, it was an accomplishment, but like, it's not even my resume anymore. It wasn't worth giving up all those nights. So have better work-life balance.
Man, the amount of my life I've given up for a curry or a pint of beer bought by a CTO that I'm never going to get back is wild. And yeah, you're right. Like now, my work profile on my phone turns off at 5:30. It doesn't come on until 9 o'clock the next morning. I'm not opening that Outlook app while I'm having breakfast or getting my kids ready for school for anything. A few years ago, I'd have been the first person to put my hand up for the next work trip or whatever. But I've seen enough Hiltons and enough conference rooms to last me a lifetime at this point.
Yeah, travel for work is certainly something that loses its sheen by about week number 2, I think.
Oh, man. And explaining that to people, they're like, oh, you went to Lithuania 2 weeks ago. How was that? I'm like, The DoubleTree was exactly the same as every other DoubleTree I've ever been in.
It's such a glamorous jet setter lifestyle, though, Gary.
It's just so boring. Like, if I see London City Airport one more time in my life, honestly, like...
It's not even a big airport. You could, like, probably do a tour of it in about 2 minutes.
I did discover recently, if you walk all the way down past where the shops are, past Pret-a-Manger, to the faraway gates, it's lovely and quiet. Didn't realise that before, but that was quite possibly the most interesting part of that entire trip for me.
Wow.
There is a secret bar as well. If you go down, there's a bar in between two gates as well. It's usually quieter.
I love that this is career advice from Shane.
Yeah. Drinking, find a quiet bar in an airport. It's all good stuff.
How much of your job could you do from your phone?
None. I would just quit. I don't do any of my job on my phone. I hate my phone at the best times. I have an e-ink phone, so nothing.
I think that's on you, Shane.
I could do all of my job from my phone at this point, but that's because, as Joe would point out, I don't actually do any real work anymore. So, can I join a Teams call from my phone? Yes. Can I send an email from my phone? Yes. Can I access Salesforce from my phone? Also, yes.
Oof.
I think I could probably do 95% of my actual day job from my phone at this point. There would be things I needed a computer for, like going and learning a lab or accessing some horrible internal platform that doesn't work on my phone, looking at you, SharePoint. But other than that, no, I think I could do basically everything from my phone at this point, certainly on a normal day.
Oof. I want to say maybe 60 to 70%. Because like Gary, most of my stuff is meetings, Slack, talking to people, affecting mind share, architecture kind of stuff, which is mostly meetings, right? Totally fun. But there is amount of time, I need to do like lucid chart or mermaid diagrams or flow diagrams or network diagrams. Like I'm not doing that on my phone.
No, you do it on a whiteboard and you point your phone at it, and that has an infinitely better camera than your laptop does. I mean, could you do it? Yes. Is it ideal? Probably not.
Sean, did you just say that part of your job is affecting mindshare with a straight face?
Yeah, that's what I tell people.
Thought leadership.
Thought leadership, right. That's what 50% of my sprint is dedicated to.
I mean, I have a confession to make. I went on a 3-day work trip recently, and I didn't take my work laptop. And the only thing I pulled my laptop out of my bag for was to record this podcast. I had zero need for my laptop for any other purpose. And I'm fairly sure if I tried hard enough and wanted to upset Joe enough, I probably could have done this from my phone or an iPad or something. I mean, it has USB-C. I can plug a mic in.
Have any of you used SSH from your phone?
Yes.
Who hasn't?
Yeah, I mean, I do that fairly frequently.
I think I'd done it on old Blackberries back in the day.
No way.
Well, that's ideal because you got the keyboard, right?
Yeah, it was brilliant, actually.
Again, my job doesn't involve doing any real work anymore, though, Aaron. So doing SSH from my phone is purely a leisure activity, or a service needs restarting, or a mount point needs to be kicked so we can watch something on the TV when I'm sat on the sofa with the kids. That isn't really work at this point. In fact, I don't even know if there's anything in work that I've ever needed to SSH into. Everything's just in a browser.
Gary, I assumed you would just redeploy all your workloads with a push of a button or something, because it's all scripted, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Plex server is one of the few things that isn't scripted, but that's mainly because there's a lot of state on there that I care about. But yeah, everything else, I guess I could just redeploy. I mean, this week I genuinely had the thought of, could I just spin up a Jenkins instance or something and actually do the deployments from
Jesus,
there, so that I didn't even have to open a terminal anymore to get to my jump box. Then I really could do everything from a browser until Jenkins break, which would inevitably happen within about 12 minutes.
Yeah. Here's a hot take. Jenkins is so 2010. GitOps is 2020s.
Look, I don't do any real work anymore, so my basis for tooling is probably stuck in 2010 as well. I mean, the last CI platform that I genuinely had to use in anger was Bamboo, and that was truly horrible. I tell a lie, actually. It might have been the Jenkins that comes built into OpenShift, but you get the point.
Oh, damn.
Most of my day-to-day was fixing GitHub Actions, so you're not missing a lot, Gary, I'll be honest.
Oh, you're right. I did use GitHub Actions recently to deploy a Hugo site.
There you go.
But again, that wasn't work. That was for OggCamp.
I could probably do 50-50. The management half of my job, fine. The technical bit, I'm on the terminal a lot, and I don't think I want to do that from a phone.
Mm.
I think a hot take is that like in 10 years, phones are going to be so powerful that we won't have like laptops, or I won't have a need for at least for a laptop. And I'll just plug my phone in to a USB-C hub, which will connect to my monitors, my keyboard and stuff. And that will be my desktop. And I think that's where I'll just SSH stuff. So soon.
Yeah, I mean, at my last job, all of the desks had USB-C monitors, and I really, really toyed with the idea of going and getting a Galaxy phone that had DeX or something on it so that I could just run the VDI client. And then I would just have to travel to the office with my phone, plug it into the monitor. There was already a keyboard and mouse there, and I could do everything in the Android version of Chrome on DeX. And then if I needed actual stuff, I could just open the VDI client and get to a real machine from there. That was genuinely possible, I think, because there was nothing local on my machine I actually cared about.
Sounds like both of you are asking for the Ubuntu, what was it, the Ubuntu phone?
I wanted that.
The convergence.
Yes.
Yeah, the Kickstarter from 20-something.
I think I backed that as well, yeah, or tried to.
I wanted it.
See, I don't want that. I want a reliable remote desktop protocol that isn't something proprietary. Like, I don't want PC over IP or something. I don't want RDP. I don't want some janky X forwarding solution. Like, I want to just be able to run a VM on my server at home and reliably get back to it and be able to play back video and stuff. But that doesn't exist outside of proprietary solutions. And a million people are maybe going to write in now and tell me I'm wrong. Please do.
Probably.
Moonlight.
Oh, yeah. Is that still going?
That's what I've been doing. It's the game stream, so it's NVIDIA, but yeah, it works really freaking well.
If you think of the best manager that you've ever had, what was it about them that made them stand out?
I think I've had managers that are differently good in different ways. I don't know if any of them stand out as the best manager I've ever had. I mean, I've had managers that I'm still friends with now and we'll meet up occasionally and grab a coffee or text each other photos of our latest thing that's gone wrong with our project cars or whatever. Equally, I've had managers that were really, really focused on the team we were in, but not quite so able to play the larger corporate game. And I've had managers that were very focused on getting us to deliver the right things that corporate wanted, but were maybe not necessarily managers that would pass the beer test. So I feel like I've had a real mix, and I don't know really if any of them stand out as the best manager I've ever had. They were just good and bad in different ways, I suppose. I really don't know how you'd get the balance of all three of those things, because I think a manager who's friendly is good, a manager who really cares about you and your team is good, but also a manager who knows how to balance that with corporate is good. So, yeah, I don't know how you'd balance all of those together.
I mean, I guess it's a question of people, right? And very few people do you look at and say they are universally good, they're good at particular things.
I think 'cause I'm an engineering manager. I think probably one of the best managers I had kind of always drove conversations towards outcomes, and he'd do this habitually. And I found it really helpful because it meant like we weren't messing around or like there wasn't meetings for meetings' sake, we'll say. It was always like, right, what are we actually doing here? What are we going to get out of it? And every meeting, he'd have a bulleted list of here's what we actually need to do. And it felt like those calls were valuable and I felt valuable in them. It was quite a contagious habit, and I've tried to absorb that as well. So many meetings or whatever that I have, I don't want to be wasting my team's time. So I want to come out of there with some clear actions. So I kind of am quite thoughtful about how I plan meetings and how I follow up from them, so they're not just wasted effort.
I always like having a manager who is someone I respect, but who is different to me in some notable way, that you can look at it and say, this person complements my skill set in a way that I couldn't do on my own. But I kind of agree with what you're both saying, that the exact nature of that can be different. So I've had managers where they were super people, and like they loved that side of managing and getting the most out of their team and watching their team succeed or progress through their professional careers or achieve milestones, all that kind of stuff. Like they genuinely cared about that. It wasn't just a kind of, I have to manage this team thing. I've seen people who are amazing long-term strategic thinkers, and I respect the way that they're kind of navigating that landscape 5 years out. And I've had people who are really good at politics and like managing meetings and achieving outcomes within groups of people. And you look at all those things and they're quite different skill sets, but you know, it can be someone you learn from in a different way.
I'm really torn. You guys have hit a lot of good points that I echo with all my experiences with my managers. I've had managers that have been incredible mentors. I've had managers that have been incredible business value, right? One of the big things that all my managers have called me out on is I tend to get really focused on, like Gary mentioned earlier, delivering the most perfect result that I don't realize it's very myopic. And if I just zoom out and see the actual impact it's going to have, I can see it's not worth divulging more of my time to. So still working on that. But I think my favorite manager was probably the one I had in college. I was very lucky to get hired as a software developer while I was still in college. And this dude took the time to really like make sure that I was getting professionally developed, that I understood how software engineering worked versus the computer science degree I was taking. And, you know, bought me pizza when I would stay over late at work when I was working there at the office, and still knew how to respect personal boundaries and be like, yeah, take your time. No worries. You're in school. So I think because he would deliver good value and because he was a great mentor and because he respected me as a person and still maintained those professional values, probably my first manager.
Yeah, I think for me, now you've said all of that, the trait that I value the most in a manager is probably transparency. I've had one manager in particular who really stands out, he was very good at pushing us as a team and asking the right questions without being prescriptive about what we should do. But he was also good at playing the game with corporate and communicating with us in a way that, you know, he would regularly sit in a meeting and lock the meeting, kick out HR and say, look, guys, I know this is BS. This is what the business wants. This is what we need to do. Here is how we as a team are going to do the bare minimum to tick the box that the rest of the business want. And I think for me, one of the things that stood out was that everyone respected him. He didn't necessarily talk to all of the team every day. I mean, in this case, he was my skip level, but had previously been my manager. So I had quite a close relationship with him. And yeah, he was very good at knowing exactly what corporate wanted, reading between the lines, but also communicating that to the foot soldiers in a way that we understood and we'd just tick the box. And I don't think I've really seen that in many other managers, come to think of it, particularly in a business of the size of the one that I was working in.
Having been a manager for a very quick stint, it is very tough to maintain that balance of what can I tell you, what can't I tell you, right? And, you know, you don't want to be too transparent and freak out your engineers about, you know, upcoming changes, right? But you do want to let them know as much as you can.
Well, that's probably a good place to stop. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and if you've got any questions or comments in the meantime, please send those in to show@hybridcloudshow.com. I've been Aaron.
I've been Gary.
I've been Sean.
And I've been Shane.
See you later.